Okay, Martin, thanks a lot for your time to talk to us from the world of metal. Great to have you here. Thanks again. You know, and what's going on, man? I have a few questions related about the Monaco time, your career, Swedish metal scene, 1980s, and of course during this crazy moment that we are living on. And my first question is totally related to this period. What are you doing to keep yourself mentally healthy during this period, man?
Well, as you maybe know, the situation in Sweden is things are going on in pretty normal way, and especially me, I'm living in a small city in the countryside, so out here you don't really notice that there's a pandemic going on actually. But the situation in Sweden is pretty bad, so. But I mean, I normally also I'm not hanging with people and I don't go to big parties or things. Yeah, this year has been strange, but in a way it has been also pretty normal to me.
Uh, this idea for antisocial distance,
Yeah,
there's no problem.
yeah. It's a good excuse not to meet people because you can always tell them, nah, it's the COVID thing, we shouldn't meet. So that's like a good excuse.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I need to confess that of course, I like go parties. I go to, but they're saying I like to go to metal gigs, you know. But it's a very good comment to avoid to go to people, to just to be around people.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, cool, cool.
Now the
Uh,
connection is really bad again. Ah,
yeah, it's coming better, but it's coming and going. Sometimes it stops, sometimes it goes on.
yeah. I'm moving here a little bit. Yeah, but let's continue.
Okay, let's talk about your childhood. I mean, the Swedish metal scene and rock scene in the 80s and 90s. For example, how was in Sweden if you want to get a record, or if you want to get an instrument, equipment, if you want to hang out, playing your neighbors, your friends around? How was this period in Sweden?
Well, actually, I'm born in Finland, so
Oh,
yeah, I moved to Sweden in '89. So, but I mean, in Finland, Finland and Sweden are pretty much alike, so there's no huge difference. But I mean, when I lived in Finland, I lived in the big city, so yeah, we had all the record stores and everything, and I started to listen to metal in the mid '80s, like around '85, '86. There, I was like 13 back then or something. Um, and as many, I started with all these bands like Kiss and Twisted Sister and Wasp and yeah, and then I was always like looking for more and more heavier and heavier things. So then I discovered German thrash metal like in '86, '87 there, and then go down to Venom and Motorhead and stuff like that, and then yeah, and then when Swedish death metal came in, and death metal in general in '89, '90. Then I was hooked, and it was like I moved to Sweden with my parents in 1989. So it was when I moved here. Yeah, it was then the movement really started, and then I got like really hooked to the death metal scene.
and how was the difference for you in terms of moving from Finland to Sweden, and to have this different terms of course they are countries that they are near, the North Europe, and but have you noticed something different in terms of the rock metal vision or attitude related from Finnish people and Swedish people?
Well, I mean, today, if you look at Finland, Finland is a completely like international country with many metal bands, and it's like big economic player in the world and everything. But still, back in the 80s, Finland was a little bit behind compared to Sweden. Sweden, for people in Finland in the 80s, they saw Sweden and Stockholm as some big international city and country, and it was like much more open-minded, and it was like a European country. That Finland was a little bit. They were a little bit more like, I don't know, a bit like the Eastern Bloc countries. So, but then I mean, but of course you could buy like records in the stores and everything. But for example, like in the 80s and still in the early 90s, when bands when they toured Europe, like smaller bands or whatever, they hardly came to Finland because of the distance, and you had to travel with the ferry from Sweden. They usually maybe they had a show in Denmark, like in Copenhagen, and then they could do like a show in Gothenburg and in Stockholm in Sweden. But they didn't come to Finland, because then you had to travel, like you had to have one travel day with the ferry to Finland and everything. Of course, the big bands played in Finland, like in the 80s, like Iron Maiden and Metallica and AC/DC and everything. But like a little bit of the smaller bands, they didn't come to Finland. Yeah. And also in the 80s, I mean, in Sweden you had bands that were like internationally known. I mean, not only metal bands like whatever Europe or Bathory or whatever. Mm-hmm. You had also this, other big like Swedish bands, but in Finland you didn't really have any bands that were internationally known. You had like a local rock and also metal scene in Finland, but those bands, many of them they had lyrics in Finland, so it was impossible to have them like spread abroad. I mean, in the 80s, the only Finnish band basically, or there were a couple of Finnish bands that were like known outside of Finland, but they were much more Swedish bands. So in that sense, Sweden and Finland were a bit different if you look at the musical climate during the 80s. But then everything changed during the 90s. And as you know, I mean, when the death metal movement came, there were also a lot of Finnish death metal bands coming and also becoming internationally known, both like in the underground and also like in the bigger circles. So nowadays, Finland and Sweden are quite equal.
Yeah, we have a lot of melodic metal bands, for example, like Nightwish, Sonata Arctica from Finland, for example. But I truly believe that they have a lot of extreme metal, like death metal bands around, like even Demonico, it's from Sweden, but you have this Finnish root.
Yeah, but I mean Amorphis, when they started in the early 90s, they were like a completely death metal band in Finland, and then they were like one of the first, and you had like a Demigod, and then also, of course, if you look at like Impale Nazarene and Beherit and stuff, so the Finnish death metal scene was growing quite fast also in Finland in the early 90s. But of course, nowadays some of the biggest metal bands in the world are from Finland, for example. Yeah, Nightwish.
Yeah, no, true. It happens. Let me. Mm-hmm. Something about directly to Demonico. Demonico was created in 2006, right? But have experience in different bands before. For example, can you tell us a little bit more? How was your the first contact? For example, playing the instrument. Have you begun on the bass, or have you tried the guitar or any other instrument? How was the approach before Demonico? The other bands and experience that you had before.
Yeah, well, I started to play guitar. I started actually to play guitar when I was still living in Finland. I got my first guitar when I was like 12 or 13 or something. And then I had a band with my friend, but it was like nothing serious. But then, like a year after I had moved to Sweden, I started Centinex, and we were five friends who started the band together. And then with Centinex, we started in late 1990, and we did a lot of albums and tours and shows and everything during the 90s and up until 2006. And by 2006, I had realized that Centinex, I wanted to quit Centinex, because I felt that Centinex had become something I wasn't enjoying anymore. There was both like some musical differences and some personal differences, and I want to start like a death metal band and go back to the roots a little bit more and find like, because if you listen to we released some Centinex albums in like 2004 and 2005, and if you listen to those albums, they aren't so much death metal, or they are death metal, but they are quite trashy or technical or whatever. So I felt that that Centinex had become something I didn't really enjoy anymore. So I wanted to start a new death metal band with go find the roots of death metal and go back to the roots. So and again, I started to play guitar when I was a kid, but when we started the Centinex, the other guy who was with me to start the band, he was a much better guitarist than me. So he started to play guitar and I started to play bass. So since 1990, I have never been playing guitar in a band. I play guitar, I write music on the guitar, but I have never played in a band. I've never been a guitarist in a band. So so then in 2006, when I had the plan to start the Demonical, and I had everything. I talked to two of the Centinex guys about joining me in my new band in Demonical, and then in April 2006, I officially buried Centinex and started Demonical. And I had planned, when I started Demonical, I had planned everything in advance, like half a year in advance and everything. I had like the name ready, I had the logo ready, I had some tracks written, so the same day I announced that, when I announced that Centinex is no more, I announced Demonical. So everything was like ready, because usually when people quit in bands, they are without the band for some months or for some years or something, but I had everything like ready. So it happened like the same day when we officially announced that Centinex is no more. We announced Demonical. So this was in 2006, and then from there on we just went on.
You have thought everything you have, for example, because people sometimes we as you said, sometimes when people decide to begin a new project, sometimes they take months or even years without a band. And nowadays everybody talks about the music business. And you said that you a half a year, 6 months before you decide to finish the band off, you have everything done. For example, logo, name, songs, and so on. So related to, I have two questions, because when you said to begin a band, so you have done everything before you started really the band. When you decided to begin Demonical, from now on it's Demonical, everything was done, and you didn't waste your time to think about, okay, what should I do first, bad name, and so on. And when you say roots of death metal, what's the roots of death metal to you?
The roots of death metal for me is like the old Swedish scene, and I mean, when we started Centinex back in 1990, it was during the peak of the or just before the peak of the Swedish death metal scene. I mean, we had all the Entombed and Dismember had released their debut albums, and Unleashed and Grave, and all these bands came. So when I started Centinex, I was heavily influenced by that. Cool. And then in 2006, when I started Demonical, I wanted to find back to the same, like to that feeling I had. It was much of like I was looking for that feeling I had when I started Centinex, because when I started Centinex, I mean, I lived and breathed death metal. I was like 18 years old. I had quit school. I was just drinking beer and playing death metal. So it was like a very easy time for me. And I remember the feeling back then. We were like most bands back then. We were rehearsing like twice or three times every week. Went to a lot of shows, recorded demos, did the tape trading, did like all this, underground stuff. And I was when I started Demonical, I wanted to find back to that same feeling. Of course, I understand that like 16 years later, the situation is not the same. I'm not 18 anymore. I have a family, I have responsibilities, I have a job. I can't just drink beer and play death metal every day.
Unfortunately.
Do that. So yeah, but I wanted to find that same kind of feeling and enjoyment in playing death metal, because back there in 2006, I didn't enjoy being in Centenex anymore. I didn't enjoy being in that band or being in a band at all, or not in Centenex at least. I wanted to find something new, start something fresh. So that was like an important thing for me to try to find. And it was also, I mean, up until then with Centenex, we had record deals, we had recorded albums and everything. But when I started Demonical, we started by recording a promo CD. We went to a local studio and recorded 4 tracks, and then we started to send out those promo CDs to the record labels. It was actually the same feeling we did with Centenex back in 1991 when we had recorded our first demo tape and started to send it out to the labels to check for record deals and stuff. So much, so that was like in a way, the starting of Demonical reminded me in many ways of how it was in the early 90s when I got into death metal and started Centenex and started to play. So yeah, that was like my main goal, to find that old spirit again.
Cool. Now you said about Send That because in 2006 you recorded Bloodspell Divine, right? Is that the promo that you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that nowadays the new bands, let's say, they really need the label, or for example, they can live by their own promoting themselves on YouTube, on social media in general? What do you think about the importance of the record label?
I think a record label is important because I mean, of course, it depends on the record label also, what kind of record label. The whole thing is that everything is totally different today than it was for even like 15 years ago. I mean, nowadays, for me, let's say like this. For me, a record label is like a real company with at least one person employed who is doing it full time, who has a proper distribution, who is putting out physical releases, not only putting up something on Spotify, like doing for me, I live in the past in that sense. So for me, record labels is as they were in like 80s. And if you are a band and you have a good record label who is like working for and promoting the band, then almost every time that's better than to do everything yourself. I know that nowadays a lot of bands, they say that we have released a single on Spotify, or we have released an album on Spotify. But for me, putting up 10 tracks on Spotify and call it an album, that's not an album for me. For me, an album is a CD, or even preferable, a vinyl, which is like a physical product.
Physical product, yes. This is what I should
have. I mean, and nowadays when there are like, I don't know, fucking 10 million bands in the world and like 1 million record labels. I mean, every guy who is like sitting at home and putting up some tracks on Spotify, they call themselves a record label, but that's not a record label for me. So And also, I think the problem is that nowadays it's so easy to record and release stuff or put out stuff for others to hear. So there are too many bands, and there are too many releases out there, and for I mean, it's difficult for the fans or for the audience to, because I mean the market is so full of stuff, so it's quite hard to stay up to date with everything that's going on and all the new releases and try to find the good ones. I mean, because honestly, I mean, if you take like 100 albums today, I mean, 90 of them are pretty fucking bad. I mean, there
Yeah,
are like
true.
10. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, it seems that the quantity has taken over quality. I mean, back in the 90s or 80s, of course, I mean, when there were a lot of bad death metal albums released in the early 90s, but still, I mean, at least like maybe 70% of them, of all the albums released, were actually quite good. But nowadays, the number of good releases is not so high. So that, I think it's a pity that the some kind of old school spirit has disappeared from the metal scene, not only death metal scene, but yeah, metal scene in general. That nowadays bands, yeah, they form a band, they make some home recording, like with today's technology, you can record pretty good stuff, good sounding stuff at home, but it becomes very clinical. Then you put it up on Spotify, and then you say that you have released an album, and yeah, but I disagree a little bit there. So in that way, some might call me a grumpy old guy that's living fast, but I don't know.
No, but I need to confess that when I talk to my friends, I say the same. For example, when you had a really good band in the 90s, you had a good album. But
Yeah,
nowadays, for example, you can listen to a good album, but you're not sure that the band's very good alive. Then
yeah,
they play live gigs, because
yeah,
the
exactly.
technology allows you to do many things. For example, in terms of drums, they can use double bass, faster
Yeah,
and faster and faster.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, exactly. And that was a big difference. I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, the bands, they sounded quite alike. Uh, yeah, they sounded live as they did on the albums, pretty much. Because when you recorded an album, you didn't do a lot of overdubs. You recorded like two guitars and yeah, bass, drums, and vocals. And if the drummer was pretty lousy or bad on the CD or on the album, he was that live as well. But nowadays, with all this technical stuff, you can do whatever you want in the studio, and you can even take the lousiest fucking drummer or whatever, and he sounds amazing on the album or on the recording. But then when he plays live, and then you hear the difference. So in a way, it's like cheating, because in my opinion, you should still. I mean, of course, Demonical, we do also do some overdubs in the studio and add some extra guitar leads and stuff, which you can't maybe do live. But in general, we try to keep it in a way that what we put on an album, we should also be able to do live. But for example, there are many, not in death metal, but in other metal genres, where you have bands who are like fucking having like backing tracks with synthesizers and choirs and backing vocals. I mean, that's like you're really cheating and cheap to me, because that's when if I go and watch that kind of band live, it's the same thing that as I would be at home and put on the CD. I mean, because for me, live has to still be alive. But if you are like 4 or 5 guys on stage, and it sounds that there would be 20 guys on stage,
Yeah,
that's not fair.
yeah, true, true, true. No, it happens. Unfortunately, it happens. Let's talk about a little bit about the composition process. For example, as you mentioned before, in the beginning, you had composed everything. Nowadays, do you prefer to compose alone, or sometimes you share your ideas. Sometimes the other guys from the band share ideas, and they have the compositions, and you feel comfortable to record the album.
Well, during the last years, we have had the same kind of way of working with albums. Usually, it's me. I make the tracks at home. I make like I sit with the guitars and some really simple drum computer and make like the basic. I put the track together. When I have the riffs, I think how should it be, which should be the verse, where should be the chorus, and everything, and put the tracks together. And when I have made like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 tracks or something, I usually record a very basic demo tape. Yeah, basic in that sense. It's only the guitar and the drums. And then I have usually already like the ideas ready for the drums and what kind of beats we should have and everything. And then when I have the basic demo, I present it to the other guys and they can listen to the stuff. And then we start to rehearse the stuff. Yeah, and then we start to rehearse it. And then while we rehearse and while they are learning the stuff, we make the necessary, if there are any changes in the track. Sometimes we change some drum beats, sometimes we change some guitar riffs, take away a riff, put in some other riff. Yeah, make some changes in the tracks. And when the track is like rehearsed and we know the form, then the vocalist will write some lyrics, and then. But usually we record. I mean, or we rehearse and record the vocals in the studio. So, for example, for the last albums, we didn't have all the lyrics ready before we went to the studio. So we had rehearsed the tracks only with the music. And then we made the vocal arrangements in the studio while we were recording the vocals. So basically, yeah. So the way of doing it is that I make the basic track, and then we rehearse it together, and then we make changes to the music if needed. And sometimes when you listen to it, of some of our tracks, I mean, the final version, which is on the album, sometimes it's quite close to my original demo idea, and sometimes it's quite different. So it depends. Sometimes I have almost made the track ready when I make it at home, and sometimes we make quite a lot of changes to it during the rehearsal process. And also when I write the guitar riffs and put the track together, I make the basic guitar riffs, and then our guitarists, they add, especially our lead guitarist, who is like really good on guitar leads and stuff. He will add some stuff and because I can't play, I have them in my head. I know where I should have a guitar lead or some melody line or something, but I can't like really come up with any good ones. But I have them in my head, and I just tell the guitarist that, yeah, on that riff it should be good to have some kind of melody line, and he understands me and he says, oh yeah, how about this, and then he plays something. So in the end, it's very much like still a band thing. Even if I like write the basic track or whatever, we are still putting it together. We put the track together. Yeah, make the final track together. So everyone is, in that way, everyone is like involved in the process. I'm not, even if I'm some kind of band leader, I'm not like a dictator. I I mean, I think every band needs some kind of leader who takes, like a captain. Every boat needs also a captain. Every band needs a leader, but just because you are a band leader, it doesn't mean that you have to be an asshole dictator.
Yeah, true.
So I take very much. I listen to the other guys' opinions and ideas, and we make the final thing together as a 5-piece band. Even if I have made the basic track to start with. So in that way, it's very much like a band thing.
Yeah, no, it's cool, it's cool. I would like to ask you something about because reading your bio, right, and searching more about the history of the Monaco. For example, you had some albums released by Cyclone Empire, and in 2017 you changed to Agonia Records. Why did you change the label? Because you had the same label since the beginning, and and it looks that in 2017 you decided to change the label. There's a specific reason.
Uh, well, yeah, we when we signed with Cyclone Empire, we signed with them after we had made the first promo. We got some different offers from different labels, and we thought that Cyclone Empire had the best offer, so we signed with them for 3 albums. And we made those 3 albums first, and then after that, Cyclone Empire wanted to sign us for one more album. So we did the Death Infer no Darkness Unbound album. Darkness Unbound, yeah, that was our 4th album and the last one on Cyclone. And when that album had been released, we noticed that yeah, Cyclone Empire had changed a little bit. There were not the same people working anymore who were there in the beginning, and we felt that the cooperation wasn't really working so good anymore. So we decided to check around for other labels. And Agonia, I had been in touch with Agonia. They had asked us already a couple of years earlier, or they had said that if we, yeah, they wanted to sign us, and they said that if you ever look for a new label, please contact us. So when we decided to leave Cyclone Empire, I got in touch with Agonia, and yeah, and they signed us pretty fast right away. And this was actually in 2015, because in 2015 we released the Black Flesh Redemption mini CD, 4-track mini CD, and that was the first release on Agonia. And then we did the Chaos Manifesto album in 2018, and now we're Domination.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so basically it was that we wanted to change label because yeah, we felt that Cyclone Empire wasn't really what we were. They were good in the beginning, but then things started to happen, and we felt that we should go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And sadly, quite fast after, I think it was in like 2015 or 2016 or something, Cyclone Empire, now they have pretty much closed their doors. They aren't releasing any albums anymore. So it's a bit sad, but that's business. But we are like really satisfied with Agonia now, and yeah, everything's fine. So
Cool,
so
cool, cool. Yes.
I think we will stay there for a while.
Yeah, no, great, great. Yeah, sometimes when we notice that something's going wrong, we need to have a choice, and yeah, it's need to find the best choice for the band. It happens.
Yeah, exactly. Because you are always like trying to look for the band's interest and for the better. I mean, and even if, I mean, to have a deal with a record label is to have like a marriage. It's like ups and downs, but then after some years, maybe realize that maybe it's time to find a new wife.
Good comparison. It happens. Yeah, I have a question because I'm Brazilian, but I live here in Poland. But you have contact with Flavio Soares, and you had a tour in Brazil, right? With
Yeah.
Flavio. Even you played in my hometown, Porto Alegre. Good memories from the tour in Brazil.
Yeah, really good memories. It was like really interesting, and it was our first ever trip to South America. So the one of the things with the Brazilian tour was that last summer we decided, like a year ago, in 2009, summer 2019, when we had done we had basically finished the touring cycle for the Chaos Manifesto album, and we started to work on the next album, so to rehearse the stuff for World Domination. And we had decided that we are not going to do any shows until World Domination is out. We want to concentrate on the album, record the album, and when the album is out, we start doing shows again. But then last autumn, in, I don't know, remember September, October, something last year, we got this offer to do the Brazilian tour. And we felt that this offer is too good to say no to. But even if we had decided that we are going to spend the whole autumn writing and rehearsing the new album, we still felt that we want to do this 2 weeks in Brazil. So yeah, it was a great tour. It was Brazil is a huge country, so we were flying between all the shows, and I mean that's like a I mean, when you are touring Europe, you are traveling in a bus or in a van or whatever. But in Brazil, we were flying between every show, every city. So it was a lot of flying. I don't remember. I counted all the flights. I think we flew like, it was like over 20 flights or something. So, I mean, between a few shows, there were like 3 flights. We had to change like 3 times. So, so it was pretty intense, but it was also good. I think we flew to Brazil, and we spent like 2 days in Sao Paulo before the tour started. And then we did like 4 shows. Then we had 2 days off. Then we did 5 shows. And then we spent like another like 2 days in Sao Paulo before we flew home to Europe. So it was also like, I mean, even if it was like heavy traveling between the shows, and like sometimes we had to go straight from the venue to the airport, because the flight, we had to be at the airport like in 4 o'clock in the morning or something. And we went like basically straight. Then also, you know, in Brazil, it's quite often that the shows are delayed.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, you are supposed to play at, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the evening, and at 11, and then there should be like 4 bands or 5 support bands, and at 11 o'clock everything is already delayed, and then you start to play at fucking 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you play until 3 o'clock, and then just right away into a van and go to the fucking airport, like basically straight from the stage. You go to the airport. You come to the airport, completely sweaty, you have your stage clothes on, you look like hell, tired as fuck, and then you fly like 3 flights, and then you arrive to the next city in the afternoon, and you are completely like lack of sleep. But yeah, you know, that's show business.
Yeah, and you don't know where you are. You know, you just wake up and okay, where am I? Yeah.
And also, I mean, the climate. You know, I mean, it's a year ago we were there in December, and December last year was pretty cold in Sweden actually. So we had snow, and it was like minus 10 degrees or something here. And we flew to Brazil, and when in Brazil it was fucking summer. So we came there, it was like 30 degrees warm or even more, and then it's so moist there.
Yeah.
So so it was the moist in the air was like fucking 95% or something. So it was like that was like the really the difficult part was the climate. Of course, you have like the air condition in like all the hotel rooms and at the most of the venues and the airports and everything. But it was still hard to be outside. But you drink a lot of beer, so that's of course good.
This is the best part of President.
Yeah, it is. So no, but all in all, I think the tour in Brazil is one of the best and most interesting tours we have done in many years, and we really hope to return to Brazil, or actually whole South America. We would really like to do a whole South American tour, or I mean play in like, I don't know, all the countries there, or most of the countries there. So yeah, it's, I mean, even if our record sales in Brazil or South America isn't maybe the biggest or like that, so it's still very interesting and I mean the fans there are like amazing, and it's like they're like really interested, and they are interested in the band, and they are dedicated, and they are like, so it was like, yeah, it was really good.
Cool, cool. During this period at home, have you composed something new? A lot of things, nothing?
Actually, I have started a little bit to write some new tracks. I have some ideas and stuff. So let's see. I mean, between Chaos Manifesto album and World Domination album, there was like 2 years between the releases. So we'll see. I mean, maybe the next album will be ready a little bit faster, because now, as I said, I mean, now as we haven't done any shows or any tours or anything, there has been some more time to focus on writing music. So I don't know if this is maybe a secret, but I tell it anyway.
Cool,
if
cool, great, come on.
If everything goes as planned, we might start to record the next album late next summer, like summer 2021, or start maybe during the late summer or early autumn, somewhere there. So maybe in 1 year's time there might be a new Demonica album out. But things might change during the process. But because that's also a thing. I mean, you know, I'm an old school guy. I like 80s metal, and back in the 80s, like all these bands, they released an album every year. I mean, if you look at fucking whatever, Kiss or Twisted Sister or Wasp or Motorhead or whatever, they released an album every year, and they were still like on tour all the time. So they went like from as soon as they had recorded the album and the album was out, they went on tour, and then they were touring for fucking 9 or 10 months, worldwide touring, and then straight after the tour they had like 2 weeks off or something, and then they went into the studio to record the next album. So there was like an album coming out every year, and that's also a thing. I mean, I would like to do it that way, but due to many things with your normal life, with family and with work and everything, it's hard to release an album every year. But also I would prefer to release albums quite often, because as I said earlier, there are so many bands out there today. So it also demands that the bands are active in a quite, otherwise there's always a risk that you almost get people forget you, because the time is running so fast, and there's so much new bands and releases coming out every year. So you have to be active. You have to be active on the record market, and you have to be active on social medias, and you have to be like active everywhere if you want to get some attention from people. So that's also like a thing you have to keep in mind. But of course, the prime reason why we are doing album is still somewhere that we want to satisfy ourselves, and we do like stuff we want to do. But of course, every band wants some kind of exposure and some kind of attention from others as well. So it's not our driving force to get a lot of fans or to sell a lot of albums. Of course, it's nice if people like your stuff. That's obvious. So we'll see. But I mean, in that way, this whole COVID thing has been good. That there has been like time to concentrate a little bit more on writing and creating music. So we will see. But I mean, now we will see what will happen during the spring now next year with the vaccine, and how is the pandemic spreading, and is there going to be more lockdowns, and how will the situation what will happen in Europe during like January, February, March, April, May. We'll see. I mean, up until now we have all the shows, all the festivals and shows we had scheduled for last summer, they are moved to 2021, and we had like 2 tours cancelled. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But right now we have said that we are not going to really book or search for more tours until we know how long this pandemic will go on. And the answer to that is no one knows. I'm actually honestly a bit skeptical if festivals even will happen next summer. I think there might be a risk that the pandemic is still, even if the vaccine is coming and everything, I think there's a risk that festivals during the summer 2021 will also be cancelled. And that's of course a hard blow for all the organizers and for bands and for fans and everything. But so I mean the hardest part, as I said, the hardest part in this whole thing is that we don't know how long this will last. If we would know that on a certain date, like 15th of June, then the pandemic is over and then life is going back to normal, then it would be much easier because then you can plan after 15th June.
Yeah, for sure.
But now we don't know if this shit is going on till April or to June or to August or to October. So it's like really, it's so hard to plan and hard to predict. So it's better to maybe not make too big plans. Take it more like day by day and see what happens.
True. And my last question is totally related to festivals because now in next February 6th, the Monica will be the headliner of the World of Metal Festival, the first edition, right? And the main point, the main idea of the festival, it would be to be a live one, official, physical one, let's say, but the first edition will be a virtual one, online one. What do you think about this idea to have this kind of online festival to promote the bands?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, all promotion is good promotion. So, but I have to be honest about this thing with the streaming concerts. I mean, I don't know if I should say this. I mean, for example, on World of Metal Festival, our contribution is the video clip, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's a secret yet or
No. You can talk. Yeah.
Because we have, I mean, during this pandemic, during this year, there are a lot of bands who have done like streaming concerts. I think it's a bit annoying that bands who doesn't really play live in under normal circumstances, they are all of a sudden doing streaming concerts. Because so it has become a little bit trendy to do the streaming concerts. And for me, when I play a show, or if we go and play a festival somewhere in Europe, a part of the whole experience, it's like a combination. It's not only the thing to stand on stage and play. It's like the traveling there, being at the festival ground, like a summer festival, then doing the show, and you have an audience. And if you have a good audience, that affects the band as well. The show will be better. It's like a combination of all these things. So that's like a package. But all these bands who are now like doing streaming concerts, standing on a stage with an empty hall or standing in the rehearsal room playing, it doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel like, I mean, it feels like a fucking rehearsal. It's the same when we stand in the rehearsal room and rehearse. And for me, it's a bit hard to get into the right live or stage feeling without the audience there, and without all the surrounding things, with like being on a festival with all the other bands and with all the fans and with the sun is shining and beer is flowing, and that's like a whole the whole package, the whole feeling. So I mean, because we have also been asked by some people if we are going to do streaming concerts, and I have said that no, we are not, because for me a streaming concert is not the same as, and also one thing with streaming concerts, I mean, almost every time unless you're like a big band with like big budget to do a good like technical production thing, there are like almost always some technical difficulties with the streaming. I mean, the picture and the sound is not in sync, or there are some like cut ups or whatever. So I mean, if I want to if I want to watch a band or experience a band, then I can put on YouTube and check a band live when they're playing in front of audience on some big festival or whatever. So so I mean, maybe the streaming, these like virtual streaming concerts, maybe they are funny and good for some bands, but the Monocle will never ever do anything like that.
Oh, cool. No, but that's okay. No, the main idea is to know to have fun during this period that nobody is playing live. So for example, you can sit down and watch many bands. We'll have
Yeah,
15 bands in the festival. The lineup will have 15 bands this first edition. And the Monaco is one of the headliners. So when Flavio told me, "Hey man, the Monaco will be is confirmed," I say, "Whoa, cool man!" The first name is a huge name for us because I'm a huge fan of your work, and it'll be very cool. But believe in me, we will receive the link for the festival, and you will notice that it will be an amazing moment together.
of course. Don't take me wrong. Of course,
Yeah,
I'm appreciate. I'm very thankful for the support. I mean, the thing you are doing is like, of course, good promotion for the Monaco, because most likely we will reach a few new people who haven't heard us before. So that's of course a good thing. But what I meant is that for us as a band, doing a virtual streaming concert is not the same thing as doing a real one. So
yeah,
for me, it would be hard to find. It's hard for me to find when I'm playing. I get influenced. If there's a good audience, I get like influenced by the atmosphere, and I get the feeling. It's hard for me to get that same feeling if I play in front of an empty floor. And it's the same thing. I mean, when we recorded our video, I mean, because then you have to predict, and you are trying. It's like I really hate doing those videos because you have to act like you are on stage, but you are like in front of a camera guy who's like zooming in your face. It's like really fake. But then in the end, when you cut it together and put it together, yeah, then it looks good. But filming music videos is like really, I don't like it at all. It's like really
that's
hard.
okay. Martin, I really appreciate your time to talk to World of Metal. For me, it was a pleasure. Believe in me, man. Great to meet you. And your last words.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking time, and thank you for also, as I said, including us at the Word of Metal festival and everything. So yeah, let's hope this pandemic will end sometime really quite soon, so we can start playing live again and stuff. So
For
things
sure.
will go back to normal. Yeah.
Cool.